Hi everybody, my name is Jens Larsen. This video is on the great Coltrane solo on the F blues Take the Coltrane of the Ellington Coltrane album from 1963. And today you're gonna have to bear with me because I got home from a gig really late, spent a lot of time in the car, and I got up really early to get the kids to school, so I might ramble even more than what I normally do. So this solo is one of my favorite solos, at least one of my favorite Coltrane solos, and I think it's a great example of how jazz is really developing away from bebop into something else in the 1960s. So that's what I'm gonna go over in this video. I'm gonna take some examples of it, analyze it, and talk about how it's different from bebop. And hopefully it's gonna give you some ideas on how you can develop your own material and your own vocabulary that's a little bit more modern sounding and maybe give it a little bit of a different flavor than whatever bebop flavors you already have in your playing. And of course, it's also just gonna give you some perspective on this solo, or at least how I view it. And if you don't agree with me, then that's why we have a comment section. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar, improve the way that you solo, or check out some interesting arpeggios or chord voicings, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to make sure not to miss anything, then click the little bell notification icon next to the subscribe button. As always, music is not an exact science. So while I'm going to talk about how a lot of this solo is not bebop, then of course Coltrane is rooted in a bop tradition. And if you check out his earlier work on this, then it is definitely also much more influenced by bebop. So there are examples of him playing more bop lines in here. But I'm not really going to be talking about them. But of course, if you want to check out this, and actually you should check out this solo and listen to it. And maybe you can also find a transcription. I'll try and find one and link to it in the description of this video. Very often when we are talking about the development of jazz, then it's reduced to now they're using this scale sound and that wasn't there before. But I don't think you can really make that reduction. I don't think that really describes the development of the music that well. So I'm going to focus on a few other things besides what notes he's using and what scales he's using. I'm actually going to focus more on how he's improvising over the chords and how he's connecting with the form and the chords, because I think there's a much bigger difference there than actually what notes he's choosing. What is interesting about these first 8 bars of the solo is that Coltrane is actually keeping it really vague. So he's not really connecting to the chords. He doesn't play something that doesn't fit with them, but he really is playing something that could as easily be something else. So we have the first 4 bars being, and this could as easily be C minor as it could be F7, because he never really sort of sits down on the third and really emphasizes now we are really playing something that sounds like a blues. It's a strong melodic statement, and of course when we don't have a piano also playing the chords, then this sort of vagueness is really a big part of how it sounds. You can also hear that the line is of course clearly a strong melodic statement, but when he develops it, so then it's not really being played so that it's moving from one place to the next, which is also something that's more typical for bebop, where you will really be playing how the chords are moving and in that way connecting a lot more to the chords. Playing like this is something that you're probably not going to find in a Parker solo or a Sonny Stitt solo, but you do have examples of Wes playing really quite similar to this. And also if you check out how he's playing on 4 and 6, he's really going much more for the 2 chord sound than the 5 when he's playing a 2-5. This example illustrates how the melodic thinking here is much more modal than functional. So if we're thinking in terms of bebop, then we have lines that are really spelling out the changes, really connecting to the chords, and also really giving the direction and the movement of the chords. So you're going to have lines that are like really moving, so in this case moving from F7 to B flat. Here with Coltrane, this is really not the case anymore. The first part of the line is this sort of angular melody using an F7 arpeggio, which is then making it kind of complicated with something really simple, which is this line. And also it's worth noticing that he's using the second inversion F major triad really a lot. He's kind of obsessed with it in this entire solo. So we have that part. It does connect to the next part, which is then a few beats later on the B flat 7. with this phrase that's coming out of a first inversion B-flat major triad. But still, the connection is much more vague, and it's not this sort of clear direction, and the point of the melody is not to go from this chord to this chord. The next two bars also really show how the emphasis is on sound on top of the chords rather than the chords moving, because it's two bars of what you can think of as being an altered dominant, so F7 altered, or a tritone substitution like B7. So the strong note here is really the flat 5, so immediately a very sort of distinct note in this context that really is thrown out there and given a lot of emphasis. And then we get really what is an F7 altered line or a B7 line, but it never resolves. And when he goes to B flat 7, he kind of quotes the melody and then moves on from there. And the way he does this is then this is turned into a motif, and then he's using that to play sort of a fairly common reharmonization on a blues in F. So going from the B flat 7, very often actually going to B flat minor, that's not really clear here, but then the two bars before we go to G minor, C7 in bar, what is that, that's bar 9 and 10, to have A minor and then A flat minor and then down to G minor. And that's also what he kind of does here. So first we have this quote from the melody, that's a B flat on the B flat 7, that's an F minor arpeggio, F minor 7, and then he moves that down a half step to an E minor arpeggio, and then moving that idea, not really transposing it, but still moving that idea down a half step with this line, and then going to a D on what you would expect to be the G minor 7. And actually the harmony here is also different from what, and going away from the functional part of the blues, because in bebop you'll mostly have a blues with a 2-5-1 cadence in bar, I forget all the time, 9 and 10. And that's sort of the strong point, the strong cadence in the whole piece. But in this solo, Coltrane is actually playing C7 to B flat 7 down to F7. So again, there is sort of this idea of exploring things that are not functional, that are not so much 5-1. And that's really something that's happening all over this solo. The reason I can keep on publishing videos every week is that I have a community of people over on Patreon that are supporting my channel. I'm very grateful for that. And if you want to join us and help me keep making videos and maybe also influence the kind of videos that I'm making, then check out my Patreon page. If you join us over there, I can also give you something in return for your support. Coltrane doesn't really use a lot of sort of standard jazz blues phrases, so you're not gonna find the type of phrases in there really a lot. But here he is using something that maybe as a guitar player we would connect to a blues, because he's playing an F minor pentatonic on the first 4 bars of the blues. So the phrase is really just really using the minor pentatonic scale and nothing else. And this is something that I think we kind of have to give him credit for, introducing the pentatonic scale as such a strong sound in modern jazz and using it in this way. And it's something that has, after him, everybody seems to be doing it. But it's really different from the kind of blues that you would hear Parker use, or Joe Pass, or Oscar Peterson, where they're much more working with this sort of mix of minor and major, and blues is really much more about phrasing than just using a pentatonic scale. This analysis is more than anything my opinion, so if you don't agree with me, or if there's something you want to add to it, then leave a comment on this video. If you want to check out some more ideas on what you can use in terms of superimposing pentatonic scales on an F blues, then check out this video where I have 9 different approaches to doing just that. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar and this is the first time you see one of my videos, then subscribe to my channel. These are the kind of videos that I publish every week. And of course, if you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. That's about it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next week.